Over the years I would come to immerse in the now ever-increasing library of subjects of interest that somehow would come to reflect the quality of the consciousness in motion. And that's a very self-driving motion. The courses, and the level of debate and curiosities alike would invigorate subcultures in public life. And I use that word consciousness with the utmost relevancy. But at that I'll risk sounding cavalier for the sake of being eye-level. At Spectrum, the individual first-person domains of those everyday people, as they are now abstractly and creatively engaged, have all other aspects of their awareness and psychologies in a projective and/or observing, comprehending, in facets amidst their multifacetedness, describing themselves as per what was available to the time to be intuitive about. People trying to understand their situation as per an implied presence, and the intergenerational places people are at in their mental lives made for an exchange of our creative governments. Existentially and experientially, there was sometimes an element of surreal or disturbance. From the headphones to the street. All aspects of life, including our inner lives, were involved. You were the one who was there, you know what that means. This was such a consequentially human time, all of the consequences of thought describing, faceted knowledge available made for a refracting of what we were aware of in ourselves, sometimes turbulently, sometimes curiously. Seeing as this was the mid-2010s, as you may remember, we were still very colorfully introverted and open and cultural and subcultural on our own terms, so all convergences of every knowledge ability were present. Documenting the psychological history of the past few years and providing context to what realities were adjacent, is to witness how many things and qualities of awareness underpin confluencing over time, and is of course an extrapolation and conclusion set in testimony. There are many people in the world. However, in seriousness, in these juxtapositions, that which would become expressive and then gradually grasping an anxious projection, indicative of a world in which we are impressing upon ourselves in some sort of stochastic sense. This is true of us as peoples in time. Asking who and what we are would become a consequential unfolding of our angst, and is only ever our endeavor. What this time had to say to our being in any position to ask this, something of a bigger picture and self-discovery for me, if not a turbulence either way. Condescending an awareness position in their life is rather incomprehensive and not always valid. It took a human to know that. In a context though. Our medias, our generation's niche of the time, introducing new medians to the way depth of perception. Being an exposure of our incremental measure of this, obviously warrants where relationship is aware of itself. At that, the strange parts. Our trait of expressing abstract concept and thought and complex sentiment and concept through art forms, and linguistics as we were trying to gradually understand the predicament and its origin, were the impressing, exchanging, of ourselves. From the graffiti on the walls, to our virtual forums, to the films that were made, to the personal experience, to our debates. The juxtaposition of our experience is either there, inward, our varying given the way contrast in living experiencing ourselves in the world came to question. The recessive in thought form being a major witness at the same time. Now, this part, rings true for an intuitiveness of familiarity, as intuition itself is what we are gauging and perceiving with. Some of the first interactions could be interpreted as sound engineering's and musical culture's forte of being intelligent and intuitive, and conveying senses, literally,